All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to be talking to a pair of individuals ahead of XFC 51, which goes down on September 27th, who are heavily involved in the promotion. Overall, a lot of excitement around this Milwaukee, Wisconsin show coming up here, and very excited to have XFC president Chris Defendis as well as WWE superstar Big E on Bowks Talking Bouts. How are you guys doing today?
Good, really good. Thanks for having us.
Doing great.
Yeah, and I guess kind of just starting off with you, Big E, like when did you get involved in XFC? Because I follow professional wrestling a fair bit and MMA I also very much enjoy. Like what did the, I guess, timeline look like getting involved with the promotion?
Yeah, so last year I had the opportunity to be the MC for the Michigan Panthers, and I worked closely with Jeff Lambert and his company in Detroit. And after the season was over, shortly after, Jeff and his team reached out to me about this possible board seat. And I've never served on a board before, but he talked to me about revitalizing the XFC and his plans. And the more we sat down, I'm as a professional wrestler for the last 15 years, I'm very talent first. So when he talked about what he wanted to do for fighters, taking care of fighters, promoting fighters in a way that I thought was fair and the right way, it really was something that spoke to me. So I've been an MMA fan for many, many years now, and I jumped at the opportunity. So, Jeff and his team, I very much believe in, and they were so professional, and everything was so well run in Detroit. I thought this was a great opportunity to do something very cool in the MMA space.
Yeah, and I love what the promotion is looking to do with this, I guess, continued growth and the new idea for the vision going ahead. Just how much, like, I guess, the idea of really telling the fighter stories, because I've seen some interviews with you talking about XFC, and it seems like very mindful of like getting that fighter story out there, like where they come from, what their motivation is. And I feel like just with your line of work, you'd be able to really be able to impart something to these fighters in the Young Guns program.
Oh, very much so. I always think, it's sports, but really at the end of the day, it's entertainment as well. And you have to sell personalities, and you have to get people invested in who's in the cage, and that's our goal. And so many of these fighters have the most incredible, amazing stories. They've been through so much, and that the fact that they put their bodies on the line in the cage, we want to tell those stories. We want people to be able to connect emotionally, because when you can connect with someone in a cage, I mean, your ability to be a fan of them really just grows. So that's what we want to do, is to continue to tell their stories, to get their names out there, and hopefully the XFC does an incredible job of doing that moving forward.
Yeah, and with the Young Guns for you, Chris, I was also seeing that there's a certain, I guess, focus on like the financial literacy
Mhm.
component and just this broader idea of having just well-rounded lessons imparted to these fighters. But I guess I'm curious to get your timeline heading into the XFC involvement, because I saw with Extreme One Entertainment you were named as president, and it seems
Mhm.
like XFC is like the first real big project for that entity. So what was the whole timeline like getting involved in this revitalized version of the promotion?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, it's funny. I have a little bit of a similar journey in getting to know Jeff Lambert and the Lambert marketing team. I spent 21 years at HBO and Warner Brothers Discovery. And then after that, went over to WWE, and that's where I met E and worked with him to secure the partnership that he had with the Michigan Panthers. Um, when I left WWE, similarly, I got a phone call from the Lambert team, and they talked about this opportunity, and so I got involved and started to help them on the distribution side, on the media side, and started to kind of understand what the vision was, what the plan was, and I kind of bought in pretty quickly in terms of this kind of feeder league for UFC, for PFL, and just MMA in general, knowing that the popularity of MMA is only growing. But also kind of having that experience at HBO and the boxing side, and seeing the journey of these young boxers at the time, and now kind of seeing a very similar path and parallel journey for these fighters. And so and then also kind of getting involved with XFC, and started to with Lakeland, and identifying that some of the gaps that exist, right? So even on the marketing side, as we know, fighters sell fights, and reaching out to these up and coming fighters, and some veteran fighters, and saying, hey, can we get headshots? Can we get video content to help promote it? And they don't have any of it. And so, because we have these resources on the Lambert marketing side, we can, put together a seminar or a curriculum for these fighters to help them market themselves, to help them promote themselves. And then that kind of evolved to other aspects of, helping them with financial literacy, helping them in other areas of, of being a professional fighter and a professional athlete. And so that's kind of where it was born from. And then, just the earnestness of that pathway, I think, is what's interesting, to me, and, E, to his point about fighters, and then people that we speak to. It really is starting to resonate, with agents and gyms and fighters, and that we're really looking out for them. And it's not lip service; it's actually, it's sincere and authentic.
Yeah, that really seems to come through. Like I've seen some different posts, like the Tim Johnson post that I'd seen a
Mhm.
bit ago, where it was shouting out his victory on the PFL circuit. Like as much as you guys are bringing in some of those talents and stuff like that, like it seems like you're very much just like I said, to reiterate the theme of being fighter forward, just like, yeah, he succeeded in our cage and great to see him, succeeding elsewhere. So it seems like that's kind of a microcosm for a lot of the fighters on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was something that our chairman and myself really wanted to celebrate, because I think what you see in a lot of promotions is they get a fighter that is about to make it big and go to UFC, go to PFL, and they're on a 3-fight, 4-fight deal with that promotion. And that promotion doesn't let them out of their deal, because that's kind of how they make money, right? So they got this person who is filming, selling tickets, getting, driving viewership or whatever, and they don't want to lose that meal ticket. Well, we're actually going to do the opposite. We're going to celebrate you. I mean, go, right? It's kind of like akin to, a AAA baseball team of having a stud player who gets called up to the majors, and they're like, nope, can't go because you're selling a bunch of tickets for us. We don't want to be that, be that obstacle to a fighter, making, fulfilling their dream, basically.
Yeah, and it seems like there's such a focus on the broadcasting component. Like it seems like there's just newer deals being curated in that regard and everything. And just like that focus with, I guess, certain entities like Francata Lighting and Worldwide Group, from what I
Mhm.
understand, just really kind of like making it really pop on like a TV broadcast level, as well as being like a live entertainment entity as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we decided after, and I wasn't involved, but there was the initial kind of relaunch was in Detroit in 2023, and then I got involved in Lakeland and Detroit, and the focus was on improving that production quality. And having come from HBO, that's kind of ingrained in my DNA is, high production value, and then also at WWE, seeing the showmanship of it. And so that's kind of how we want to develop XFC in that way of kind of that high production quality, but also allowing fighters to allow their personalities to come through both in the cage and, to East Point, in the storytelling of it, even allowing them to do some things, during their walk to the cage. And we had Pearl Gonzalez and flamenco dancers at the last fight, and really allowing them to show who they are, but also encouraging them and maybe teaching them a little bit how to use social in that capacity. But again, it's I think it'd be really cool to, continue to push the envelope on the production side and do things like happen at WWE, where there's some show happening, there's some excitement, and there's some, to your point, visual pop, and combining the entertainment and the competitiveness.
Yeah, well said. And just curious to get thoughts from both of you on this upcoming card here, because there's definitely names that really bring that entertainment and excitement value. I mean, Alex Nicholson is an individual who, across multiple combat sports, has really proven himself as a very exciting heavyweight, but also very cool to see the, Emmanuel Sanchez inclusion for this September card here. I think one of Bellator's more historically proven action centric fighters. So, I'm just curious to get thoughts from both of you on just this upcoming card and some of the, I guess, facets of this event that are really catching that intrigue and really getting you both excited.
Yeah, no, I think we've really compiled a great card, especially for a fledgling organization in many ways. We had Kenny Cross, who is a guy who had a lot of excitement that people were really into in Detroit. And I think a guy who understands the showmanship side of this. He's a character. And I think the more you get to know him, I think fans will really gravitate to him. Also, a guy and Zach Pauga, who's been, in the UFC and fought there as well. I think Pauga and Nicholson is going to be, two athletic heavyweights who can move around and are looking to finish the fight as well. So, I think we're really doing a great job of bringing in some new, younger names. You'll see some veterans from Bellator, from PFL, from the UFC as well. And that's what I'm really excited about is you have both familiar names and new names to follow as well. And, in our last card, a guy like Hausch Manfio, who won the $1 million in the PFL, and you're thinking like, all right, he's going to run through this competition, but that's not the case. And that's what's really exciting is you have opportunities to learn some new names in the sport who are growing, who are doing incredible things.
Yeah, and I think, taking a step back and strategically what we want to do is as we try to give a path for these up and comers, but also you have these veterans, we're looking at it as you have a veteran who's been around, and if this up and comer defeats them or beats them, now they're on the map, right? So I think, when we look at Lakeland and you had Darian Abbey against Tim Johnson, Darian's up and coming. If he would have beat Tim, now people are starting to pay attention. Tim beat him, that's the game, and Darian has to go back to the drawing board and kind of figure some things out. But Tim then elevated to PFL and had a nice little couple fight run there. So that's kind of how we're strategically building the cards, but also combining the local aspect too. So we're working with gyms in Milwaukee to round out the card. We're working with Duke Rufus and some of the other gyms in the area to round out the card. So there's a local element and a local flair to both fill the venue, number one, but also to drive viewership on Triller TV, which is our broadcast partner for this one.
Yeah, and I guess just speaking to like the broader strategy, I mean, there seems to be like a certain amount that can be imparted at this juncture, but I guess like what I'm kind of touching on is I was kind of seeing from some prior interviews that it looks like there's a show that's being like somewhat tentatively targeted for December. Like that seems to kind of be the focus. Like what can you kind of impart to the XFC fans about what they can expect from a broader schedule or just what this like strategy could look like as the story unfurls in the next little while?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yes, we want to put on a regular cadence of events, and we have a tentative schedule through the end of 2025, which I think is helpful for us. So, we're targeting doing something down in Florida in December. We'll come back with something in February of next year, likely February, April, September, December. So we'll do 5 to 6 of what I would call these arena shows or tentpole shows. And then we will also add the young and relaunch Young Guns. And so we're having discussions and we're in the planning phases for launching Young Guns. Hopefully that gets launched in October. And then we'll do those on a monthly basis. And so, for our calendar for next year, we're hoping to have, when it's all said and done, between 14 and 16 total XFC shows between Young Guns and our numbered shows.
Yeah, I love to hear that idea for the broader strategy. It seems like some great things are in the works. And just with you, Big E, like it seems like your name value and your overall profile has a lot of pull. I mean, Chris was talking about the localized presence and as far as like some of the area gyms for these different cards, but just seeing some of the media you were able to do ahead of that last card there in Detroit and stuff like that. And I guess I was kind of also wanting to tie it into like some of the meet and greet kind of components of everything. Like, what's it like getting to directly interact with these XFC fans and I guess feel that tangible enthusiasm from them in a direct way for the product?
No, it's been a ton of fun and something that I've been excited about. It's something that we did in Detroit at the Masonic Temple, and just being able to meet the fans and see their excitement has been lovely. So the fact, that I can lend my name and glad hand a little bit has been really nice. But I'm really excited about what we're building, and I feel like our fans are starting to understand what we're building as well. So to be able to go out there and and shake hands and talk to people and feel that excitement, it's been really lovely. So we're excited to keep building, to keep meeting people. I think that's something that we'll continue to do, the meet and greets. But yeah, we're really excited to grow this, and I really want to do everything I can to throw myself out there to help build this organization.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Dylan, I think you're based in or you're in Brazil. And given XFC's history in South America and Brazil specifically, that is an area where we're targeting to relaunch events down there as well. So more to come on that, but it's not just going to be a domestic play for us. It's going to be an international play because again, I think we're not a huge organization, but we have huge aspirations. And so we're nimble, we're quick, we can move, and knowing how MMA is becoming more and more popular across the globe, we want to be able to react to the fans and the fighters.
Yeah, that's really exciting because from what I was seeing in my research, a lot of those
Mhm.
earlier kind of XFC events were based like specifically in Sao Paulo state. So, I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of cool. I could potentially come out and see some of that action.
Absolutely, for sure. Love to have you.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been exciting to follow what's been going on so far. I guess this is kind of a sidebar question, even, but I
Mhm.
feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of touch on it just because you mentioned your history with WWE and you have a history with Warner Brothers Discovery as well. I guess I'm kind of presuming you're maybe following the situation, but like, what are your thoughts on the, I guess, like AEW, like negotiation process that's been going on? Like, is that something that you've been, I guess, following it all or have any thoughts on? I guess I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on that based on your history with high level
Yeah.
pro wrestling and Warner Brothers Discovery.
I mean, I haven't been following it closely, but from just what I know of the industry and the competition that's out there with WWE going to USA and Netflix, AEW having that relationship with Warner and TNT, right? So with them losing the NBA, and that's pretty much I think a foregone conclusion that the lawsuit isn't going to really maybe probably not go anywhere. But they're going to need ancillary sports content like AEW, and so I can see them re-upping that and going there. But I can't speak to the competitiveness of AEW rights, right? I mean, is one of the digital players going to be involved? I'm sure they're having conversations and seeing what's out there, but I also think it's something that that Warner Brothers Discovery is going to want to keep as they get as they need to plug the hole that is left by the NBA. And they're doing that through, the college football partnership that they just struck with ESPN, getting French Open rights, to go along with Major League Baseball, NHL that they still have. So I'd be surprised if it moved, but at the same time, given this day and age in media and how everything is changing, who knows? Every day you're opening your email and seeing a new crazy story about the trajectory in the sports media business.
Yeah, no, well said. It seems like a constantly fluctuating sort of thing. But I guess I'm just curious, Big E. I feel like there's people out there who are excited hearing that you're so involved in the board and just your XFC involvement. I guess kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit. Like, what are your, I guess, like day to day and week to week duties under the XFC umbrella? Like, I guess, what does that look like just with you being involved and everything like that? Like, what, I guess, duties and considerations kind of encompass your role with the company?
Well, I'm definitely active in the board meetings that we have pretty regularly every quarter. Also, like I'm in regular communication with Chris, just kind of shooting ideas about, and that's what I love too, is just having a relationship with Chris even before all this started, and I think so highly of him and what he did even before he got to the XFC, what he did in WWE, but even just Chris understanding the space. We spent a lot of time just texting back and forth, especially when some stuff on the digital side. That's kind of what I really think of growing. That's kind of one of the focuses that I've had is like, how can we tell these fighter stories more? How can we do more on the digital side? How can we do more on the entertainment side? So Chris and I have just been in regular communication about what we can tweak, about the presentation of the show as well. So it's just really that of just me kind of putting out my notes of how I think we can improve this thing. Because I truly, this is not something that I wanted to be a part of just to check a box, just to say I'm on the board, or, I really wanted to I think, right by the fighters and do right by this company that I think is truly trying to do the right thing. And we're trying to grow a business, obviously, and that means, taking in as much capital as we can, but it also means doing things the right way and doing business the right way, and in a way that, I can sleep well at night knowing that I'm working with people who are treating fighters well, and doing business in a way that business should be done. So yeah, it's really just constant communication with Chris and trying to bring more of the entertainment side, and how can we tell more of these stories better. So yeah, that's a regular ongoing communication with Jeff as well, but mostly just Chris and I having these conversations.
Yeah, and I can just double click on that because when I went to WWE, I was the one thing that struck me and what was most impressive was the knowledge level and the expertise of the superstars. They are phenomenal at their trade. I always kind of, I was incredibly impressed by that. And even E is, for as knowledgeable and as much of an expert as all of them are, I felt E was above and beyond, just understanding how you tell stories, understanding what's going to resonate with an audience base and a fan base. And, in one of those events that we were at in Michigan last year at the USFL games, I mean, there was 10,000 people there, there was 10,000 people on WWE night. They were all clamoring to meet E and the rest of New Day. And again, they just know how it works. Like they just feel it. It's a visceral feeling. And so for us to tap into E's expertise is great. And then Jenny Taft, who is with Fox Sports personality, also, her insight and her acumen is really, really welcome and allows us to do what we need to do to take this thing to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's pedigree seems to speak for itself for sure. But I guess I'm just curious to kind of hear from both of you guys, like just your anecdotal experiences, kind of even getting into the sport, because from what I could tell, Big E, you've been involved in the sport in like a fandom kind of level even before XFC for a little bit. But I guess just curious to kind of get both of your individual timelines and just the anecdotal connection to the sport of mixed martial arts, like when it kind of all began and whatnot.
Go ahead, E.
Sorry, I was gonna let Chris go because they're cutting the lawn at the very worst time. So I was gonna go back on mute, and hopefully they'll pass by the time Chris is done.
Perfect. Nothing like perfect timing. No, I think the way that I think it's kind of weird, right? So having grown up at HBO, and we were always super into boxing at HBO, and it was almost like MMA was, we didn't look kindly on MMA because everyone on the leadership side said it's a flash in the pan, boxing, and then as you started to see the popularity of it, and there's a lot has been written about how HBO missed when they had a chance to get either acquire UFC or get the rights to UFC, which I think Dana has been very vocal about lately, in that they wanted to kind of do the production their way, and to his credit, he didn't let them do it. But that being said, I think we look at it like, this is MMA fans, but this is a business, and we are strategic business people, and we have a leadership team and a board who aren't just MMA people, because I think that's, if you come at it from, too much of a fan, I think sometimes you lose sight as to what makes sense for the business and what makes sense for the strategy, and really having, a clear mindset of what works and what doesn't work. And, we are, XFC is an Xtreme One company, right? So Xtreme One is our parent company. They are publicly traded. We have to follow the various sets of financial regulations and procedures and processes that any, publicly traded company has to. That's good and bad. I mean, it's good because it allows us to have a layer of sophistication in how we invest our money, a layer of transparency, and responsibility. But the industry, there's not a lot of publicly traded MMA companies out there. There's only one that I know of, right? And so some of the things that other promotions might be able to get away with, we just can't, because we're not allowed to, due to the financial rules and regulations that we have to follow.
So my entry point as a fan, sometimes I feel a little silly telling the story, but one of my tag partners, Xavier Woods in the New Day, has a gaming channel called Up Up Down Down, and when UFC 2 dropped, we were playing this thing obsessively. We were playing this video game all the time, backstage before every show, and playing that game so obsessively got me to really get hooked into UFC again, and that resparked my fandom. You know, I grew up, not grew up, but in college, really we're all into the UFC, and it was a really fun time. But I felt like I was a casual fan. But really, when UFC 2 dropped, it really sparked my fandom again, and I was all in to the point of watching every show, listening to Anik and Florian. I listened to Morning Combat as one of my favorite podcasts. Shout out to Luke and to Brian. So I really became such a huge MMA fan, and then started watching the UFC, watching Bellator, watching PFL, watching LFA, and just, I was an amateur wrestler in high school as a state champion. So I have so much respect, like just being able to understand one aspect, one particular part of the craft is hard enough. But when you're combining Muay Thai and grappling and kickboxing and boxing and just all these disciplines, I just really, the more I learned about the sport, the more respect I gained for the sport and for the athletes. So yes, my real entry into being a big MMA fan, as silly as it may be, was a video game.
No, I mean, I have heard that quite a bit anecdotally, actually. Like, it just kind of speaks to like how so many different things can kind of, I guess, get people immersed in the sport and everything like that. So, I mean, it's not necessarily an uncommon thing. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I mean, you kind of touched on the amateur wrestling pedigree. Like, was MMA ever something that even back in the day that you kind of thought it'd be fun to try, or you're not really about the shoots, you're more about like the works and stuff like that, as to use the
Yeah, I
parlance
mean,
of
for
wrestling?
one,
Yeah.
yeah, MMA didn't have the popularity it did when I was a younger man trying to make my decision between wrestling and whatnot. Also, mind you, I'm 5'10" and change, and I'd be fighting at heavyweight. I know Daniel Cormier did it, but that does not make it easy, and I did not have the pedigree. So I take my hat off to those guys, because not once did I ever think I had the skills to make it in MMA. And I've been really fortunate. I feel like I found my niche when it came to professional wrestling, because it's a nice mix of entertainment, which I feel like I learned to do over time. And I was also able to bring in my athleticism as well. But yeah, I don't think, we've had guys in our industry like Bobby Lashley, obviously CM Punk had some fights in the UFC as well. So shout out to those guys who have done it. Matt Riddle was a guy who came from the UFC and also had success here in WWE. But yeah, that was not my lot in life. I was designed to be a fan only, to not actually step in the cage.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Just figured I'd ask because you mentioned the amateur wrestling background, but I kind of wanted to get some insights from you, Chris, in terms of like, I guess, like some other projects that might be on the table. Because I was seeing some interviews where you were talking about how Extreme One Entertainment is potentially looking to put their foot on the gas more just in like the general space of extreme sports slash combat sports. I imagine there's perhaps a certain amount you can't divulge with that, but like, I guess, what does that in a loose way kind of encompass? Like, is there maybe going to be a focus on some other combat sports under that umbrella, or what did that statement kind of allude to, I guess?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, I think there's some exploration on developing new sports, right? So you think about things that, and without, to your point, without going too in depth and sharing things that I'm not capable of sharing, but things that say this the right way, things that people do as a hobby and for fun, but you can add a layer of competitiveness and a layer of excitement, and develop that for TV and a live audience. So kind of exploring that, but also looking, to your point, looking at the specific combat sports category. There's a lot of niche combat sports that are out there that are just growing in popularity, whether it's kickboxing obviously has been around for a long time, but kickboxing, or grappling, or heck, sumo wrestling is making a comeback, right? So starting to look at things like that maybe we can find the right partner, the right fit, create some, synergies and some efficiencies. And if that's a possibility, I think that's something that, that's part of the strategy as we grow Xtreme One into a holding company with sub brands underneath them that can all thrive and live together.
Yeah, just such an exciting time for the company. XFC 51 is specifically an exciting show, but just love hearing about the broader plans. And I really do appreciate both of you for making the time. But I guess in just being mindful of what I presume are busy schedules for each of you. I mean, I appreciate you guys making the time, but figured I'd give you the floor and see if each of you kind of had a final parting thought you were wanting to add as we were kind of wrapping things up here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just really want people to give us a chance. It's new ownership. We have a new direction. I truly am excited to be a part of the XFC. I'm excited to see what we're building. I think we already have cards with some great names on them, like Pro Gonzalez and Timothy Johnson, and we're going to continue to grow and get better and better. So please be on the lookout for the XFC. It's a great product. We have great people attached, some great fighters as well. So look out for us because we're here to stay. We're going to keep growing, and hopefully we'll be in a town near you very, very soon.
Yeah, and I can, I'll ditto what you said, but again, it's great people. What we talk about and what we're trying to accomplish in that fighter friendly and fighter first mentality is not just lip service. It's, what we want to do. It's what we're striving to do. It's actually one of the reasons that, I took the role to begin with was, knowing the type of person that he is, knowing the type of person that Jeff Lambert is, knowing the type of person that Doug Kuiper, who is my predecessor, is. I knew that it was surrounded by good people and not people that were paying lip service to what they wanted to do, but were, doing something different behind the scenes. So, we want to do the right thing for fighters that want a chance. Both on the up and coming side, but also coming back down and maybe fulfilling their journey. We're open to those, and we want to push the envelope in terms of the production and see what else is out there for Xtreme One. So to your point, we got a lot on our plate. We got a lot of big aspirations, but I think the right people and the right mindset to accomplish those.
A lot of pancakes on the plate, as some might say.
Exactly. For sure.
Yes. Indeed.
Well, no, I appreciate both of you so much for making the time. Hopefully the first of many chats going forward here with this exciting XFC endeavor. But thanks again so much for both of you guys making the time, and have a great rest of your day. And I'll be checking out the show when it goes down in the coming weeks as well.
Absolutely. And when we're in Brazil, we're gonna want you in front row for sure.
Yeah, I would love that. Well, thanks so much, guys. You have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome.
You too.
Thanks, guys.